Two bullies cornered a quiet woman in the park, their voices harsh and demanding. "This is our spot now," they snarled, fingers jabbed threateningly toward her face. But they had no idea who Angela Foster really was. Beneath her simple gray hoodie lay the calm strength of a black belt in karate, and they were about to find that out the hard way. The morning sun bathed Cedar Heights Park in a soft golden glow, turning the dew-dappled grass into a sparkling carpet. Among the early risers was Angela Foster, a 40-year-old woman with auburn hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Dressed casually in a modest gray hoodie and comfortable yoga pants, she blended effortlessly into the peaceful surroundings. For years, this quiet corner of the park had been Angela's sanctuary, the perfect spot for her morning meditation and stretching. It was just far enough from the playground's noise to be serene, yet open enough to catch the first warm rays of sunlight. By day, Angela worked as a local librarian. Her co-workers knew her as kind, dependable, and reserved. But what no one realized was that Angela had dedicated 2 decades to mastering karate. Under the guidance of the renowned Sensei Yamamoto, she had earned her black belt, a testament to her discipline and quiet strength. She never boasted about her martial arts skills. For Angela, karate was never about intimidation or showmanship. It was a path of balance, mind and body, spirit and strength. Each morning before work, Angela found her spot on the grass, closed her eyes, and began her breathing exercises. This ritual grounded her, preparing her for whatever challenges the day might bring. Today was meant to be just another ordinary morning, until she noticed 2 unfamiliar men watching her from across the path. There was something in their gaze that made her uneasy. Still, Angela pushed the feeling aside. Cedar Heights had always been safe, a place where families gathered and neighbors strolled without fear. She moved smoothly into her first pose, focusing on her breath rather than the strangers. 2 decades of training had taught her vigilance without distraction. She could sense their eyes on her, but her calm never wavered. Around her, the park stirred to life. An elderly couple walked their small dog. A jogger passed with a nod, and a mother pushed a stroller toward the playground. The neighborhood's peaceful rhythm was comforting, a quiet sanctuary Angela had cherished since moving here 5 years ago. Yet beneath this calm surface, an unexpected test awaited. One that would challenge not only her physical skills but the very philosophy Sensei Yamamoto had instilled in her. For a true martial artist, strength is not measured by seeking out fights, but by how one responds when conflict finds them. Angela's journey began 20 years ago as a college student seeking fitness. Drawn by curiosity, she stepped into Yamamoto's dojo, a modest studio with polished wooden floors and simple decor. Sensei Yamamoto was nothing like she expected, a soft-spoken man in his 60s with kind, insightful eyes. "Karate is not about fighting," he told her. "It is about harmony between mind and body, about knowing when to stand firm and when to yield." Those words stayed with Angela. Through the twists and turns of college, career changes, and life's ups and downs, the dojo remained her constant. 3 evenings a week she trained under Sensei's watchful eye, advancing slowly but steadily. It took her 15 years to earn her black belt, longer than most, but Sensei Yamamoto praised her patience. "You never rushed, never sought to impress. True mastery comes from within, not from outside validation." When Sensei retired 2 years ago, moving away to be near family, Angela felt a void. Yet she kept practicing, honoring his teachings daily, maintaining both her skills and mental discipline. At work, her calm in crisis was legendary. When a pipe burst flooded the library's reference section last winter, she quietly took charge, coordinating the emergency with calm efficiency. "It's like you've been training for disasters your whole life," her supervisor remarked. In truth, she had. Her karate had taught her to remain centered under pressure, to see clearly without emotion clouding her judgment. These lessons served her well in all aspects of life. Angela lived simply, in a cozy 1-bedroom near the library. Her apartment was minimalist, but warm. Bookshelves lined with novels, thriving houseplants on every windowsill, and a small corner dedicated to her practice. There were no trophies or certificates on her walls. For Angela, validation was internal. Her mornings were sacred. Wake at 5:30, meditate for 20 minutes, then head to Cedar Heights Park for stretching and kata practice before the day began. Evenings were for reading, continuing education, and community events. She had never needed to prove herself. The quiet confidence she carried came from years of dedication, both to karate and to mindful living. Often she reflected on Sensei Yamamoto's favorite lesson: the bamboo that bends is stronger than the oak that resists. Sensei Yamamoto had taught Angela that true strength wasn't about dominating others. It came from knowing yourself so completely that outside threats had no power over your spirit. That morning in the park, as Angela continued her breathing exercises, she embodied this philosophy perfectly. Like bamboo, flexible yet unbreakable, humble but powerful. What she couldn't know was how soon every part of her training would be tested, in a way she never expected. Derek and Cameron hadn't set out to cause trouble. After a late night of drinking, they'd just been searching for a place to hang out. Cedar Heights Park seemed as good a spot as any. At 27 and 25, they considered themselves above the everyday rules. Derek, the taller one, with close-cropped hair and a permanent scowl, had only lived in the neighborhood for 3 months. His broad shoulders and aggressive stance made others back down before he even spoke. He worked irregularly on construction sites but preferred asserting dominance whenever he could. Cameron, his constant shadow, was smaller but just as menacing. He made up for his stature with loud bravado, eager to prove himself to Derek. His white tank top revealed tattooed arms, and his restless eyes scanned constantly for chances or threats. The pair already had a reputation. The coffee shop on Main Street banned them last week after they harassed a teenage barista. The convenience store owner kept a baseball bat behind the counter, just in case of their late-night visits. "Check her out," Derek nudged Cameron, nodding toward Angela as she unrolled her mat. "What's she doing, some kind of yoga crap?" Cameron snickered. "Looks like it. Bet she thinks she's all spiritual and stuff." Derek's irritation grew as he watched her calm, measured movements. People like her annoyed him, those who seemed at peace, who had a purpose. It highlighted everything missing from his own chaotic life. "That's a sweet spot she's got," Derek said, eyeing the sunlit patch of grass. "Perfect view. No trees blocking the morning rays." Cameron caught the hint immediately. "Yeah, way better than where we're standing. Think we should claim it?" Derek's lips curled into a cold smile. "Definitely. She can do her little exercises somewhere else." They'd done this before, intimidating joggers off trails, pushing others from park benches, small power plays that gave them fleeting control in lives that otherwise felt directionless. "Let's go introduce ourselves," Derek said, already striding toward Angela. Cameron followed, adrenaline kicking in. Their favorite game was finding someone who looked vulnerable and watching fear flash across their face. The rush was addictive. Neither man noticed the perfect balance in Angela's stance. The precise control of her movements or the quiet awareness in her eyes as she tracked their approach without looking directly at them. To Derek and Cameron, she was just an easy target. Angela was deep in her breathing exercises when a shadow fell across her mat. Opening her eyes, she saw 2 men blocking the sun directly in front of her. She stayed seated, posture steady, and looked up with a neutral expression. "Morning," she said simply, voice calm and even. Derek looked down at her, arms crossed. "You know you're in our spot." Angela glanced around the wide, empty park area. "I wasn't aware this area had assigned seating," she replied conversationally. "I've been coming here for my morning routine for years." "Well, things change," Cameron said, moving to stand beside Derek. "We like this spot now, so you need to move." A few nearby park visitors took notice. An elderly couple stopped walking with their dog, watching with concern. A jogger slowed, clearly debating whether to step in. Angela took a slow, deep breath. "There's plenty of room in the park for everyone," she said reasonably. "I'll be finished in about 20 minutes if you want to wait." Derek's eyes narrowed, unaccustomed to such calm in the face of his intimidation. Usually people stammered apologies and hurried off. This woman's composure was unexpected and irritating. "We don't want to wait," he said, voice hardening. "We want you to move now." Angela remained seated but straightened her spine. A subtle shift any trained martial artist would recognize as a preparation stance. To Derek and Cameron, it just looked like she was settling in. "I have as much right to be here as you do," she said evenly but with new firmness. "I'm not looking for trouble, but I won't be bullied." Cameron stepped forward, face flushing with anger. "Do you know who you're talking to, lady? When we say move, you move." A small crowd had gathered nearby, keeping a safe distance. Someone pulled out a phone, ready to call if needed. The tension was thick. Angela's training kicked in. Sensei Yamamoto's voice echoed in her mind. "The first victory is to remain calm when others lose their composure." "I don't know who you are," she said, steady and clear. "And you don't know me. That's fine. But threatening people in a public park isn't okay." Derek leaned down, bringing his face uncomfortably close. "I'm not threatening you yet, but trust me, you don't want to make me angry." Angela didn't flinch. She held his gaze, breathing steady. Years of sparring had taught her to read body language, to anticipate moves before they happened. She could see the tension coiling in Derek's shoulders, the telltale signs of a man ready to explode. Angela noticed the subtle shift in Derek's weight, leaning forward just slightly, a sign of impending aggression. She met his gaze steadily. "I'm going to finish my morning routine," she said clearly. "You're welcome to find another spot or wait until I'm done. Both are reasonable options." Derek straightened up and exchanged a look with Cameron. This wasn't going according to their usual script. The woman should be gathering her things and scurrying away by now, not calmly setting boundaries. "I don't think you understand the situation," Cameron said, lowering his voice into what he thought sounded menacing. "This isn't a request." The standoff stretched on. Angela remained seated on her mat, calm and composed, while Derek and Cameron loomed over her. The park had fallen eerily quiet, as if even nature held its breath. The birds had stopped singing. "Last chance," Derek said, voice dropping an octave. "Pack up your stuff and go." Angela looked at him evenly. "I already gave you my answer. I'm not leaving." Derek's expression darkened. He wasn't used to refusal, especially not from someone he saw as weaker. He nodded to Cameron, who stepped forward and deliberately placed his foot on the corner of Angela's mat. "Oops," Cameron smirked. "Looks like I'm standing on your fancy mat now." Angela's eyes narrowed, but she didn't move. "Please remove your foot or what?" Cameron taunted, grinding his heel down harder. The elderly couple who had been watching approached a park maintenance worker, gesturing urgently toward the confrontation. The worker spoke into a radio, likely calling for help. Angela took a deep breath. Sensei Yamamoto had always said karate was for defense, never attack. The greatest victory was the battle not fought. She hoped to diffuse this without conflict. "This doesn't need to escalate," she said calmly. "We're all adults here." Derek laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Yeah, adults who want this spot, and we're taking it." He bent down and grabbed the edge of her mat, pulling sharply. Angela rolled smoothly with the motion, maintaining perfect balance even as the mat was yanked away. In one fluid movement, she rose to her feet, still non-threatening but firmly grounded. "Don't touch my belongings," she said, her voice steady but edged with authority. Derek blinked, caught off guard. Several onlookers had their phones out, recording. Someone murmured about calling the police, but no one wanted to be the first to intervene. "Oh, look at this," Cameron sneered at the crowd. "She thinks she can tell us what to do." He stepped deliberately into Angela's personal space. "What are you going to do about it, library lady?" Angela raised an eyebrow, so they'd been watching her, maybe even following her routine for days. "You've been keeping tabs on me," she stated, not asked. Derek grinned, confident he had the upper hand. "We know all about you." "Quiet. Little librarian. Lives alone. Comes here every morning like clockwork. Predictable, boring, and alone," Cameron added with a cruel smile. "No one here to help you." A jogger nearby hesitated, then took a tentative step forward. "Hey, leave her alone, guys." Derek's glare snapped to the man. "Stay out of this if you know what's good. For you." The jogger froze, caught between wanting to help and fear of becoming a target himself. Angela raised a hand gently. "It's okay," she said to the jogger. "I appreciate your concern, but I can handle this." Cameron laughed outright. "You hear that, Derek? She can handle this. That's cute." Derek's patience snapped. He reached out and grabbed Angela's arm, fingers closing tightly around her wrist. "Time's up. Move, or we'll move you." The moment Derek's grip locked on her wrist, something shifted in the air, subtle but unmistakable. Angela's posture tightened, her eyes sharpened, and she drew a controlled breath. "Let go of my arm," she said quietly but firmly. Derek tightened his grip, relishing the control. "Make me." What happened next was a blur. Witnesses would later disagree on the details. One moment Derek held her wrist smugly. The next, he was stumbling backward, grip broken, confusion overtaking arrogance. Angela had executed a basic wrist release, a technique taught to beginners. She hadn't struck him or hurt him, just broke free with precise efficiency. Recovering, Derek's face twisted with anger. "You shouldn't have done that." Cameron stepped up, flanking his friend. "Big mistake, lady." Angela stood calmly, hands relaxed at her sides. To casual observers, she seemed at ease. But trained eyes would notice how she subtly shifted her weight, angling herself to watch both men at once. "I asked you to let go," she said simply. "You refused." Derek lunged forward, trying to grab her shoulders, an impulsive, clumsy move born of anger, not skill. Angela sidestepped smoothly, using his momentum to send him past her. He stumbled, nearly falling before catching himself. The crowd gasped. Someone called out, "The police are on their way." Embarrassed, Cameron decided to act. He stepped forward and swung an open hand toward Angela's face. Not a punch, but a slap meant to humiliate. Angela's hand moved with practiced speed, blocking and deflecting the slap upward and away. In the same fluid motion, she stepped aside, maintaining perfect balance while Cameron's strike left him off-center. "Stop this," Angela warned, voice ringing clearly through the silent park. "Walk away now before someone gets hurt." Derek recovered and began circling, rage twisting his face. This was no longer a simple intimidation. This wasn't just about a patch of grass anymore. It was about Derek's wounded pride, bruised by the unexpected refusal of a woman he'd underestimated. His eyes darkened with rage as he snarled, "You think you're tough? Let's see how tough you really are." Without warning, he charged, at Angela, arms outstretched, ready to tackle her to the ground. Angela stayed perfectly still, poised and focused, waiting for the exact right moment. Years of disciplined training had honed her instincts. At the last possible second, she pivoted, sharply on her back foot. Derek's momentum carried him forward, crashing into empty space where she had been standing moments before. As he stumbled past, Angela reached out, placing a steady hand on his shoulder, and gently guided his weight downward, using his own speed and force against him. The outcome was inevitable. Derek hit the ground with a heavy thud, sprawled awkwardly on the grass, the wind knocked out of him. He lay there stunned. Never had he felt so completely undone. One moment he had charged forward, confident in his victory. The next he was staring up at the sky, struggling to catch his breath. Angela stood nearby, posture relaxed but alert. "Stay down," she advised quietly. "Take a moment to breathe." Cameron watched in disbelief, his confident sneer fading as he glanced between his fallen friend and the woman who had toppled him with no visible effort. What are you?" he stammered. Angela didn't answer the question directly. Instead, she spoke to both men with calm authority. "This doesn't need to continue. You can both walk away now, and we can forget this happened." Slowly, Derek pushed himself up onto his elbows, face flushed with a mix of embarrassment and rage. "You think I'm going to let some woman make me look stupid?" he spat. "This isn't over." He scrambled to his feet, his earlier cockiness replaced by a dangerous desperation. Men like Derek couldn't accept being bested. especially not publicly, and certainly not by someone they'd dismissed as weak. The crowd around them had grown, many people now filming on their phones. Some cheered Angela on, while others urged caution, hoping someone would step in before things escalated further. Derek charged again with Cameron close behind. They had abandoned all pretense of intimidation. This was a direct attack now. Angela's response was fluid, precise, and controlled. As Derek's wild punch came toward her, she executed a textbook karate block, deflecting his fist with her forearm. In the same seamless motion, she pivoted, using his momentum to guide him past her. Cameron lunged next, attempting to grab her from the side, but Angela shifted her weight, dropped her center of gravity, and performed a textbook hip throw. Cameron flew through the air, landing hard beside his friend. The crowd erupted in surprised cheers and applause. Angela hadn't broken a sweat. She settled into the classic ready stance taught in dojos worldwide, feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, hands poised to defend or strike if necessary. There was no aggression in her posture, only calm preparedness. "I am a third-degree black belt in karate," she announced clearly, addressing not only Derek and Cameron but everyone watching. "I have trained for 20 years under Sensei Yamamoto. I did not want this confrontation, but I will defend myself, if necessary." Derek and Cameron exchanged glances, the weight of their situation sinking in. They had picked a fight with someone far beyond their skill level, someone who could have seriously hurt them, but had instead chosen restraint. "She's bluffing," Derek muttered, though doubt crept into his voice. "Dude, did you just get thrown on your butt?" Cameron replied, rubbing his shoulder. "I think she's for real." Angela maintained her stance. "This is your last chance to walk away," she said evenly. "The police have been called. They'll be here soon. You can leave peacefully, now, or explain to them why you were harassing a woman in a public park." Derek glanced around at the crowd. Dozens of witnesses watching intently, phones recording every moment. His options narrowed quickly. "Fine," he spat, pushing himself to his feet and brushing grass from his clothes. "This park's boring anyway." Cameron followed, rising more slowly, clearly nursing both physical pain and wounded pride. No sooner had Derek and Cameron turned to leave than the distant wail of police sirens cut through the air. The crowd shifted and murmured as people began approaching Angela, expressing amazement. "That was incredible," exclaimed a young jogger nearby. "Where did you learn to do that?" "You were so calm the whole time," added an older man leaning on a walking stick. "They never stood a chance, did they?" someone else remarked. Angela smiled modestly, already, folding her exercise mat as if nothing unusual had happened. "I just wanted to defuse the situation without anyone getting hurt." The elderly couple who had called for help approached. The woman reached out, touching Angela's arm gently. "Are you all right, dear? Those men were absolutely dreadful." "I'm fine, thank you," Angela assured her, "and thank you for getting help." Two police cruisers pulled up at the park entrance, officers stepping out and scanning the scene. A bystander waved them over, pointing toward Angela. Derek and Cameron had reached the park's edge but froze at the sight of the police. For a moment, they considered running, but the officers were already moving toward them. "That's them," someone in the crowd shouted. "They were harassing her." One officer approached Derek and Cameron, while another came to speak with Angela. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Rivera." The policewoman introduced herself. "We received several calls about a disturbance in the park. Are you all right?" Angela nodded calmly. "Yes, I'm fine." There was a confrontation, but no one was seriously hurt. Officer Rivera pulled out a notepad. "Can you tell me what happened?" As Angela recounted the events, several witnesses chimed in with their own observations, confirming her story. Multiple people showed video footage on their phones documenting the entire incident. Several park visitors stepped forward to offer their video recordings and eyewitness accounts to Officer Rivera as evidence. "She was amazing," one man told her. "Those guys were trying to intimidate her, but she handled them like a pro." Across the park, the other officer had Derek and Cameron pressed against the patrol car, checking their IDs. Derek was gesturing wildly, trying to spin his version of events, but the officer's stern expression made it clear his story wasn't convincing. "We'd like you to come down to the station to file a formal report," Officer Rivera told Angela gently. "Those men have multiple prior complaints for similar behavior around here." Angela nodded. "Of course. I'll cooperate however I can." As she gathered her belongings, Angela noticed many park visitors still watching her. Some with admiration, others with curiosity. Her quiet morning routine had unexpectedly made her the center of attention, something she had neither sought nor wanted. "I guess I'll have to find a new time for my exercises," she murmured, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. Sensei Yamamoto would have appreciated the irony. The following week brought noticeable changes to Cedar Heights Park. Derek and Cameron were nowhere to be seen. Their usual corner near the basketball court stood eerily empty. News had spread quickly through the neighborhood about the morning's confrontation. Angela later learned from Officer Rivera that both men were now facing charges of harassment and attempted assault. It wasn't their first run-in with the law, and with multiple witness statements and video evidence, their case was difficult to dismiss. They'd been causing trouble all over the neighborhood for months, Officer Rivera explained when Angela stopped by the station to sign her statement. "Your incident was the final straw. The judge issued a restraining order keeping them away from the park and several other locations where they had been reported. Derek and Cameron had been released on bail, but the conditions were strict. They couldn't return to Cedar Heights. Park weren't allowed to contact Angela and had to check in weekly with a probation officer while awaiting their court date. There's community service in their future at the very least," Officer Rivera added with a satisfied smile. "Maybe picking up trash in the parks they've been terrorizing will teach them some respect for public spaces." But the most significant change wasn't legal. It was the ripple effect that spread throughout the community. The local newspaper ran a small article titled, "Librarian Stands Her Ground Against Park Bullies." It didn't sensationalize Angela's karate skills, but emphasized the importance of community members standing up for one another. Cedar Heights Park felt more alive than ever. Families with children, older adults who once avoided the area, and joggers who had felt unsafe were now reclaiming the space that had long been threatened by people like Derek and Cameron. The incident reminded everyone that communities grow stronger when people refuse to be intimidated or pushed out of the places that belong to them all. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Angela returned to her usual spot in the park. As she unrolled her exercise mat, she noticed several new faces among the morning crowd, including a group of women setting up near the gazebo for what looked like a self-defense class. The instructor, a petite woman with streaks of silver in her hair, waved when she spotted Angela. "You inspired us," she called out. "We decided it was time to learn how to protect ourselves." Angela smiled and waved back, feeling a mix of embarrassment and pride. She had never sought recognition, but there was something deeply heartwarming about seeing others empowered by her example. Later that week, while shelving books at the library, Angela overheard 2 older patrons talking about the incident. "That librarian showed those troublemakers," one said. "My granddaughter says she wants to take karate lessons now," the other replied. "Says she wants to be strong like the library lady." Angela smiled quietly to herself as she returned to her work. Sensei Yamamoto had always taught her that the true purpose of karate was not to fight, but to build character, to develop the inner strength that makes fighting unnecessary whenever possible. As she walked home that evening, Angela reflected on how one quiet moment of standing firm had sent ripples through the community. Sometimes, she thought, the most powerful statement isn't made with fists or loud words, but simply by refusing to be moved from your rightful place. If Angela's story of quiet strength resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We share powerful stories of everyday courage every week. Have you ever had to stand your ground against intimidation? Let us know in the comments below where you're watching from and how you handled it. Remember, true strength often comes from unexpected places, just like Angela's. Sometimes the most powerful response isn't aggression, but calm confidence, rooted in preparation. Share this video with someone who might need inspiration to stand tall today. Until next time, stay strong and stay kind.